Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with me, Tom Alvarez. My guest on today's podcast is dedicated performing arts patron and volunteer Jackie Nytes. Join me now as I go on the aisle for a conversation with Jackie.
Mochi Health is here to help you start your weight loss journey with caring, personalized support. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who truly listen and understand your unique needs. Eligible patients can access affordable GLP-1 medications delivered right to their door each month. No insurance? No problem. Mochi Health accepts FSA and HSA, making care accessible and affordable. And with 24/7 customer service, you'll never feel alone on your path to better health. Get started with Mochi Health today. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's join, MOCHI.com with promo code AUDIO40.
It's such a pleasure to see you here with me, Jackie. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little time.
Happy for the invitation, Tom. It's been great to think about talking to you after all these years.
You know what? I like to tell my listeners about the behind the scenes, the production, how I put these things together. And since I cover the arts, I book a lot of people when I'm out in theaters. And that's where we last saw each other. I had the pleasure of sitting next to you at the American Pianists Association Awards.
Yes.
Gilbert Circle Theater. Oh, it was spectacular. And I'm usually invited because I review, and I was there to review the concert. And before I knew it, you sat down next to me, and wow. So it was an added treat because it gave us a chance to catch up. And I believe in seizing the moment. So I said, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And you said, me? What? Why me? What could I possibly? I don't know how you put it, but I said, of course. And my listeners know when I cover the performing arts, there are a lot of stakeholders, as I call them. And you're a stakeholder. It's not only the artists that I like talking to, it's the people behind the scenes, designers and so on and so forth. But anybody is fair game who loves and advocates for the arts. They can be donors, they can be board members, they can be patrons.
You got me on all three.
Yeah, and naturally I'd want to talk with you because I really want to educate people about what it takes to make the arts happen, and that for the artists, it's a job, and hopefully they can make a living at it. Having said that, you've had such an extensive career beyond your involvement in the arts right now, and you were a city-county councilman for 12 years. You've been an administrator. You've done a lot of stuff. Weren't you on the economic development for the state of Indiana, or
Yes.
do I have that wrong?
No, I did that for about 3 years. It was a wonderful opportunity.
And you spent time with the public library system. You did that.
A couple of times around.
You're retired, is that
I
correct?
am retired.
Okay, so tell me, how's retirement?
Retirement is rewarding, fun. Haven't quite caught up with myself even yet. But
How long has it been, by the way?
I retired at the end of 21. So
Okay.
by now you'd think I'd be caught up. But the things I want to do or get to do list is long, and so we're chipping away at it. But actually, I have been in some aspect of public service here in Indiana since 1981.
And I think you and I probably met when you were a consular. And of course, we're going to be talking about your late husband, Michael O'Brien, who is very important in my life, personally and professionally. And let's dedicate the show to him because his presence looms large and his presence is felt. Well, I mentioned to you when I saw you that image of him in the Phoenix lobby. And
Yes,
he's head
the glass
to toe.
window with the words.
It's just so
Yes.
wonderful to
Yes.
see that. And for people who don't know what I'm talking about, explain what that is.
I really give a lot of credit to Bill Simmons and to the artistic team that actually delivered on it. That is a window. They were trying to think of some way to honor Michael O'Brien, who had been very supportive of the Phoenix. Now, we were not Phoenix people in the early years, like maybe Scott Keller or somebody was, but Phoenix, when they moved over to Illinois Street, by that time we were pretty supportive. And they wanted to do something to honor Michael, and Michael's background was journalism, and he was the owner of a printing company with his brother.
Well,
and so
let's plug him. Printing partner.
Words are very much central to Michael and all of his work over the decades. And so the image is a photo etching of him, a full-length photo etching, surrounded by a word cloud that was made up from asking all kinds of people that knew Michael for a word.
That's where that came from. Wow.
Yes, we asked all kinds of people for a word and used a little AI package to create the word cloud. And it came out, and the artisans were so wonderful at producing this multi-paned window. It's an emergency exit at its root, but right now it looks like a work of art.
Do you know the hours it took for the
Oh my goodness, I'm embarrassed that I can't tell you the actual name of the glass company. It's on the southeast side. So talented. They worked for, I would say, a couple of months to finally get it installed and everything.
So for those who don't know who Michael O'Brien is, tell us about Michael. And by the way, he was the president, CEO, owner, operator of Printing Partners.
It was a partnership with his brother, Joel, who still runs the company now, and who he and his wife, Mary, own it. Large printing company here in town, started out very small. An Instaprint franchise.
Delaware Street.
Yeah, the awning is still there, but
Yeah,
the shop has all
of
been
course not, yeah.
consolidated on 16th Street as they grew. But we purchased the building in 1989, purchased the business in 1989, and grew it to where it was ultimately probably the third or fourth largest printing company in Indianapolis on 16th Street, and they have always prided themselves for their support of the arts. And we used to joke about them being the printer for the arts community in Indianapolis, but they had a level of dedication and care for the arts organizations, big or small. They were there for them, whatever they needed. Programs, brochures, advertising, money, whatever it was.
I would like to, on a personal note, share my own experience with Michael O'Brien. It goes way back to the time, most recently, 10 years ago, my partner Dustin Klein and I founded Klein & Alvarez Productions, and Magic Thread Cabaret is one of our brands, but we really started the company because we produced a musical, Calder the Musical. And Michael was one of our biggest in-kind donors. He provided all of our collateral, programs, posters, postcards. And working with him, we were neophytes. And his sponsorship of us was integral in us developing our brand, because that was his work. And so I had that personal connection with him. And then, of course, I'd see him at all these arts events. But see, I'm not the only one associated with groups that can count the part he played as helping them develop their brands. And that's such a popular word now, but if you're going to have good success, you have to have a nice logo, materials, and he,
all of that.
Yeah.
He thrived on that sort of mentoring, if you will, for young
artists. Well, that's how it
artisans.
does, and I'll always be grateful for him. But in any case, and to watch the growth of the company over the years has just really been something. To see that big building and to go there and pick up materials at the back door. It used to be this little place.
Right. And now they have presses inside there that produce things at the rate of thousands of copies a minute.
Yeah. Now they do other stuff, big signs, and they
direct mail.
and
Political
contract
season is
people,
an
too.
amazing time for them because they're doing direct mail all over the country.
Do they do that printing that goes on sides of buses, on skywalks, and all that stuff too?
Actually, no.
No,
No,
okay.
no.
I thought
Those
maybe
kind
they
of-
subcontracted.
They will do that, yes.
Okay,
They have
yeah.
lots of
Do
partnerships.
you play a part in the company now?
Not any longer.
No?
Now I'm like that, I guess I'm like that aunt who comes back for anniversaries.
Oh Yeah, so you're not like on their board or
No,
anything like
no.
that. Okay.
Not necessary. They're doing so well.
Yeah, I bet you a bunch of people still come to you and say, "Hey, how can I get
Yes,
something
people
printed?"
do that all the time. So maybe I should ask for some sort of commission.
Consulting fee or
But
whatever.
it's okay. I get the family rate on my own personal
Oh,
printing,
I'll
so
get
I can't
friends and
complain.
family?
Yeah, they have a friends and
Well, and then you have the pleasure of every single curtain call where they are in-kind sponsors. You hear that name,
So
like the
always
symphony and the IRT. And,
always a proud moment to know that the company is still so invested in the arts here in Indianapolis. That means a lot.
it's a foregone conclusion that you must miss him. How has that been for you
It's been hard.
and your family?
Our son and I have done okay. Probably folks of much faith might say, what would Jesus do? I have to be honest and say that I spend a lot of time saying, what would Michael do when I'm faced with any sort of
How
opportunity?
long were you married, Jackie?
40 years.
A long time.
Yeah.
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 So do you feel his presence?
Huh.
Yeah.
There are Josh Groban songs that'll tell you those stories.
Let's go back to your retirement. What are some of the roles that you play in arts organizations and name them?
Sure, Tom. I've been really blessed. There are some things that I was doing even way before I retired. I was appointed to the Symphony Board. Here's a history lesson for you, by Bart Peterson. That's long enough ago that people will go, when was that? So the Symphony Board is quite dear to my heart and a wonderful opportunity to serve the largest arts organization in the state. And I love them. I love everything they do. And I'm so excited about the future of the symphony here in Indianapolis. So that's been great. Michael was pretty instrumental in the formation of the Indianapolis Ballet in 2016, 17, 18, that kind of thing, when they went from being just a professional school to actually a professional performing company. And it took me a little hot minute there to step into his shoes after he passed away. That just felt a little too close, but I gave it a little bit, and I am now vice president of the ballet and continuing to nurture that. And there's one of those big moments about what would Michael do?
Sure.
Because he believes so strongly in the opportunity for our city to have a professional ballet. You mentioned early on about the arts and the artists who need jobs. I am constantly aware of the fact that we educate these young people in beautiful things like ballet. And then how are they supposed to make a living? The fact that we have a professional company means that we offer an opportunity here in Indianapolis for these very talented young people who we're educating at IU and other places to actually take those gifts and skills back out to the community and perform and get paid for it.
Don Steffi was a guest on this podcast, and he spoke to that. I think it's important for people to know from the point of view of the managers, the people who run the companies. It gives them great satisfaction to know that they are helping these artists do what they love, but also give them salaries, contracts, pay rent,
Yes.
and put
These are-
food on the table.
The arts organizations are truly part of the economic development ethos in our community. There's no doubt about it.
Along those lines, you're a politician. You know how that system works. Why is it that we're still in 2025 trying to make the case to all these politicians that the arts benefit the community in economic ways? Just forget all the rest of it. Oh, it's a luxury. Oh, it's elitist, all that kind of stuff. But what about the bottom line, if that's what's so interesting? Why is it that we're still butting heads?
Not as many people have the opportunity to be involved in arts as they're growing up. I think people are much more likely to play sports or something like that than they are to be doing something in the arts. And so many people don't grow up with that emotional attachment.
It's a good point.
So you've got that. I think you've also got questions of scale. let's face it, no one is running around town wearing a T-shirt that says Kevin Lynn from the Indianapolis Symphony on it.
Could be, but
They absolutely should
I
be, and
get
it's
it.
one of my dreams in life would be to have that happen.
Yeah.
But of course they're wearing Colts football paraphernalia to the point of abstraction. And so scale, I think, is part of why the politicians
Yeah, we don't have any
get
Caitlin
it.
Clarks yet.
But we got to get one or two of those for the ballet. But also I think there is a culture in the U.S. that says the arts are going to be paid for by philanthropy. And so over in Europe, where the government supports the arts, they're trying to figure out how to grow philanthropy. Over here, where philanthropy supports the arts, we're trying to figure out how to get the government to pay for it. So it's an interesting dichotomy to think about that.
Yeah. You think about it, when the communists were in charge in Russia, they treated their artists like royalty. They had apartments and Mercedes, and they were like, that's not the case here.
It was part of their argument to show how successful and wonderful communism was. The Nazis did the same thing.
That's good. It wasn't just art for art's sake.
No, I'm afraid not. I'd be more
political
opportunistic.
motives.
But I wouldn't mind if we got a little opportunistic about the arts here.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. All right. You are also involved the Indianapolis Symphony and the ballet, the two major. And of course, you and I were chatting about what Michael would have loved to have seen these partnerships. Talk about the two partnerships from the last 2 years.
These are such an important development here in Indianapolis. I can still remember sitting at the Meridian restaurant up at Meridian, close to the canal there, 10 o'clock at night after a ballet with Vicki, and James Johnson had recently come to town from the symphony.
Victoria Liris is
the
the
ballet.
director of the ballet, and James Johnson is CEO of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
Michael and I took them to dinner after a show, and I tell you, Michael was relentless about how wonderful it would be for the ballet to have live music, and the best live music in town would be the symphony, and why couldn't we get the two of them together? Never mind that the symphony has 72 musicians to pay, and of course it's a very big investment. But he started that conversation then, and it eventually came to pass. James was quite new to town, and although James had actually had some time in his career where he had worked with a ballet company in New York City, I don't think the two of them were at all familiar with each other. But they both saw the value.
His wife was a dancer, so
Yes.
that would have given him, okay.
But he truly appreciates ballet and was inclined to find a way to do this collaboration. And all
Two
of
visionaries, put them together.
absolutely.
Michael knew how to do that.
Yes, he was good at that networking. So we got past COVID. We found a wonderful philanthropic friend, here we go again, in Jim Lemler and the rest of the crew at the Clues Fund. And they understood the value of this and funded a grant to help make this collaboration possible. And so we've now done 2 full-length ballets, Romeo and Juliet and Swan Lake, with live music from the symphony.
And you hosted a gathering in your home to gather support for the Romeo and Juliet. I was there. And for me, having covered the arts, it was historic to see James was there, Don Steffi, Victoria. Kevin Lynn played, did he not?
Yes.
And it was just remarkable. And Vicki, who is also incredibly talented, was there with some of her samples of some of the costumes. And there was a model of the set, which was designed by a famous opera set designer who came out of retirement.
But Yoshiko Kamasutra was there also.
That's
and
right.
She's our lead ballerina.
Yeah.
And it was so inspiring to see those 2 young people, Yoshiko and Kevin Lynn, there on the panel in front of the fireplace with the artistic and administrative people who were facilitating their opportunity to collaborate. But then to have them there. And,
Like I said, it was
and Jack
historic.
from the symphony. Yes.
It was symbolic. Everything about that event.
So we've done it a second time now this year with Swan Lake, which was a sellout. We were so
That's
excited.
No easy feat. How long? 1,600 seats, or is that the Palladium?
No,
I
it's a
can't
little bit
remember.
more than that.
More,
I think it's 2,000 something.
Oh, yeah.
And the thought It was a little intimidating to think that we would go to Clues and sell out Clues when we're used to being in the Tobias Theater at the IMA at Newfields. But we did because, A, we have a good marketing staff, but B, because it was right. I think that was the thing. It was right. And so the symphony's audience got it. The ballet's audience got it. And from what we understand, probably another 20-30% of the people who were there had never seen either arts group before.
Anecdotally, having covered the arts as a reviewer, I've seen a lot of audiences over the years, and I don't recall having seen one that was as diverse in terms of there were a lot of children, a lot of families, young people. It was really, those are the audiences that everybody strives to develop.
It's a great comment on how accessible these art forms are in our city.
And that's the thing I noticed. It's no small thing. It used to be that people were intimidated about going to places like Coos Hall, going to ballet, going to theater, going to anything related to the arts. Oh, that's not for me. Oh, how do I dress? Oh, that's too fancy. Or I won't understand it, or whatever. And yet, I loved seeing so many people dress casually.
It was a wonderful display of people just going on their own terms. There were little girls all dressed up like ballerinas, and there were complete families. There were teens who came in groups. Where'd they all come from?
Yeah.
But an excellent mix of people and very encouraging.
You certainly do have a good marketing team. I mean, think about it. Of course, it helps that there are over 90 dance companies or businesses in this community, as I understand it, Central Indiana. So that a lot of those dance students want to see.
Yes, I think dance is growing a little bit. There's actually a dance council, and so I think dance
Marielle
is growing.
Greenlee was a guest on the show, and she
Excellent.
promoted the dance.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's part of, I think, a really neat movement for young people to be able to express themselves. And the symphony has really geared up its efforts to reach a much more diverse audience than might have once been the case.
I think you and I, as we were sitting in our seats, we both remarked, I told you again, I'm name dropping, but I'm pleased to tell you that June Marco has been on the show, Kevin Lynn has been on the show, Austin Huntington.
Oh, excellent.
And Sherry Hong.
Oh, okay.
And they played their instruments in the studio. To hear Kevin Lynn play his Stradivarius, like right where you are, talk about, I'm a nerd about such things. And
Did you touch it?
It was a pretty rarefied experience for me. But back to our conversation, so I think I remarked to you that all those younger faces, due to a couple things, COVID was one, but just attrition. People retire, some things. Mixed with some of the old timers. And June thought that was important, that the old and new. So you keep the institutional traditions alive.
Yes.
But they certainly have brought a vitality.
They absolutely have. And thank goodness that we're having these transitions, because that's the way there's going to be any sort of sustainability for the arts. And I think the transitions in all kinds of fields, whether it's politics or the arts, can be tough. People like me don't want to let go. We want to stay there. We think we're still valuable and useful and all of that. But if we don't let go, how else can that next generation come up and have the same wonderful experiences we had for leadership and creativity?
Do you get to know the musicians personally?
We have a lot of really nice opportunities now to do. I'm actually proud of the symphony for how hard they work at building relationships. There are dinners with board members. There are a couple of activities where the musicians contribute an activity that actually gives other people a chance to get to know them, like the Asian buffet where the musicians cook.
Sherry does a lot of that.
She's a good one, and she's not afraid to get out there. She's so generous. And Kevin is generous, too, with his time and his skills. And then we have a couple of musicians who are on the board with us, and so that kind of thing has been helpful. Getting to know musicians because of committee work has really been very valuable for me. I've been really thrilled at the opportunity to get to know them better, and I have so much respect for their gifts and their skills.
And what's your observation or opinion regarding James's leadership?
I'm excited. I've been on the symphony since 2003, I believe, 2004, something like that. We now have the most comprehensive strategic plan we have had in this whole time period. And that was developed under James's leadership. And that includes a facilities plan for the updating and additional development of the Hilbert Circle Theater. We've not had that kind of vision until only recently.
And again, for listeners who aren't aware, James's background in the arts is national in scope. He was with the New York Philharmonic before he came here?
And he was at Omaha.
Yeah, that's right.
The Omaha Orchestra. So he has a really good grasp, and he came right before COVID. So his very initial opportunities were, how do I keep this orchestra paid somehow during a time when we were making no money? And we've managed to find ways to get them insured and things like that. But his leadership, I believe, has been really critical to the progress we've made and the sense of energy we have right now about the future.
And every organization, large and small, needs a committed, dedicated board. How's the ISOs?
I think the ISO's board also has an influx of new blood. And there is really a good example of that mix of the old and the new, because there are people involved in that board who have been supporters of the symphony, believers in classical music for decades. And there are also, there's at least a dozen people that I barely know because they've just come on the board in the last year. So I think the board is doing a good job of looking out into the community to find new folks to come on board. We do struggle a little with diversity, as many boards do.
I think you're finding out, as everybody does now in the wake of what we've seen in the last few years after Black Lives Matter. The arts were at it before that, though, in all fairness, but people are finding they need to be proactive. It's, we can't find them. They're whatever.
You got to go out there. Another organization that Michael and I have been supportive over the years is Storytelling Arts. And I can remember when their former director, Ellen Munns, came and talked to us about, how do I get more diversity on my board? And we had to really brainstorm. And she was able to do it, but it took very conscious effort to introduce the organization and to go after people who would commit.
I can speak from personal experience about that. Being Latino, I can't tell you how many people approach me for a period of years. Will you be on the board? As like the same people all the time, and we're all overcommitted. We were at that time, and I would say, have you done any FaceTime here? Have you met someone? I was really getting tired of that.
Of a play facilitator?
Yeah, that wasn't my job.
It's still necessary. It's still somebody's job, and,
Sure.
and we have nice things in town like the onboarding events that
I'm
are
just happy
done.
that it seems to have become intentional now. It's not an afterthought any longer. It can't be, because oftentimes, don't you agree, funders want to see.
They want to see that, and quite honestly, if you've done any sort of strategic planning about the future of your
course.
organization, you know that your organization has to put something more diverse on stage, or there won't be enough people in the audience.
I completely understand that there are, it's a generational thing. There still hasn't been enough time for young people of color to matriculate through music schools, but they have to be talented too. It's not an easy, but I think it'll happen eventually, but it's generational, so we all have to be patient.
I think we can do better at the board level, faster in terms of the talent. That's going to take time.
Yeah.
When you look at the orchestras across the country, there is diversity, but it tends to be musicians of Chinese, Korean, those kinds
Correct.
of backgrounds. A wonderful representation there. But classical violinists, folks of color, whether they are black or brown, that's taking time yet.
Juilliard has programs now. The biggies all have programs
They
now.
do?
I've been seeing some great stories on CBS Sunday Morning and others interviews around that. The local symphony, I think, the partnership with them, is that correct?
Metropolitan Youth Orchestra.
It's such a great partnership.
A second project that Symphony collaborates with in this same vein is something called Sphinx. That's another opportunity to cultivate relationships with talented musicians.
And the thing applies to the ballet, which is even more considered elitist and Eurocentric. There are only so many Copelands because they have not been trained yet, and they're in great demand.
And there are many musicians of color, many dancers of color in the schools and training programs, but they're not studying classical ballet. Those toe shoes are make a difference.
Let's talk about those toe shoes.
Oh, my God.
Jackie, they're like thousands of dollars, aren't they? You have to put that in a budget.
We do. And, in fact, we were probably paying $99 or something like that for toe shoes in the last couple
why
of years.
they're so expensive.
Every single one is handmade. And there's not a lot of places that make them. And they don't last. They're so fragile. It's hard to believe they're fragile.
Okay, for those who don't know what we're talking about, ballet shoes, these ballerinas have to stand on their toes and the shoes have to support their toes.
Yes.
They're wood, correct? Or not?
It's a combination of wood and what feels more like paper mache almost.
Okay, covered in silk.
But covered in silk. And if you're lucky, they last a week and a half if you're an intense dancer.
Goodness.
And guess what happens with the current tensions out there in the market? Shoes that were $90 are now going to be $140.
The tariffs are causing ballet shoes.
Imports.
From
import
where?
issues. We have suppliers in France that we have used a lot. And so, needless to say, this is going to be an intense fundraising effort to make sure our dancers have the best shoes. And my worry is that dance companies will choose to go what we might call flat-footed, if you will, just dance flat feet. It can be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous dancing, what they do at DK and things like that.
That separates it from contemporary dance.
To classical. The thing that we do especially well at the
You know that Martha Graham worked hard to get people off those toe shoes.
She did. And you know what? Because we all want a variety in
Yeah,
life.
right. Yeah.
I go to both of those companies because I love both of them.
DK, I know you're a big supporter. Dance Kaleidoscope, right? Yeah.
It's just the arts face these challenges. The instruments our musicians play are immensely valuable, and
I don't think people realize the whole thing, too. It's expensive, as you pointed out, to have live music. That's why you hear recorded music. And in markets like ours, for instance, this is so expensive.
You look at Cincinnati, which has lots of Fortune 500 companies and things like that, and they have a little bit.
Do they have their own orchestra? I didn't know that. The ballet company, do they have their own ballet orchestra?
I don't think it's an individual orchestra, no. I think they work with someone.
Okay.
But my point being that in a community like that, sponsorships, corporate support, that's a little bit easier. Here, we're still working to grow that with the newer companies and things.
One thing I wanted to point out about both of those collaborations, those partnerships, is that we talk about being world-class all the time in this community, at least on the sports end. I'm just generally, we are a world-class city. Indianapolis is no longer Indianopolis, blah, blah, blah. But with the arts, we can really claim we're world-class because of what we saw these last 2 years. Would you agree?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. I would agree. I think our symphony is sounding the best it has sounded in decades. I think we are definitely a world-class
ballet companies and symphony orchestras in the industry, they're ranked into tiers, of course, and we are considered regional. But I would make the argument that under this leadership, I've talked to I told you about the musicians I talked to, they would love to tour more, to record more, to get Indy on the map because they believe they have the goods.
Yes. And our ballet company feels the same way. We now are supporting 30 dancers for 32 weeks a year, and they are good enough that we want to take them on the road. And next year, we're going to get them as far as Crawfordsville. But one of our goals is, in fact, to give them the opportunity to tour so they can show the amazing talent that's coming out of Indianapolis.
Then let's give a shout out to Victoria Liras. I think about what came from that visionary, that brain of hers, and she talk about Vicky and what she's accomplished.
Well, I think Vicky herself was a classically trained ballerina in a very classic tradition, and had the opportunity when she came to Indianapolis to realize that there was a void because we had just lost our professional ballet company.
Ballet International.
Yes, and Vicky saw that with them no longer being part of the scene, the exposure to ballet was going to be more limited, and she began the school at that point in time. And
she took a cue from her mentor, she always said, or
yes,
she told me.
Mr.
I
Zimmer.
interviewed her once.
Mr. Zimmer, who said first to school. And so the creation of the school was critical to keep the notion of professional classical ballet alive here in Indianapolis. And the school continued to grow and to do performances. And they then began to realize that the thing we could do that was different than Ballet International had done was that this could be Indianapolis's. We wouldn't be importing dancers from someplace else. We would be training dancers in our school, and we would ultimately be employing dancers as professionals. And so Vicky then made that transition and opened the company. And so she really has been the founder and has really guided the two organizations under one umbrella through lots and lots of growth and change.
And it's, again, talking about small feats or no small feat for her, for the organization, there's still a bad taste in everybody's mouth about the Ballet International Company folding, because a lot of folks thought the stewardship was subpar. That's just a fact. And a lot of people invested in that company felt betrayed, and there's still remnants of that. Would you agree?
I have encountered it. Our own printing company had an unfortunate experience in that situation. But that happens in the world, and somehow or another you've got to figure out what to do better the next time.
They were stiffed by a lot of people. I was to be perfectly transparent, I was an interim managing director for a minute. Let's put it that way.
Oh, dear.
So I was inside. So that's why I'm so effusive about what Vicky has done to get people back on board with how important it is to have a ballet company again.
I myself, as a board member, have encountered what you're talking about from people who have hesitated. They've taken their gifts and their time and their devotion to other organizations because they were wary, if you will. But this is where I think having a good board becomes so critical. And I'm really a strong believer in the importance of not-for-profit groups, arts groups, having very strong boards of directors. Business people with a passion for whatever it is, but people who can. God love Vicky. She is our creative energy. She also managed us in the beginning, and all of the financial and all of the other management efforts, she led them. But as the organization is growing, she started to assemble a board. And that board is what's critical now to giving confidence to the community that the organization is on top of things, that there will not be such a loss of faith again.
Well, I mentioned the term stewardship, and for those who don't know what that means, donors expect you to run the business like a business and that it not be wasted or there be no...
They want you to deliver on their investment. And a strong board helps to make sure that an organization is sustainable even as it is growing, and that it can, in fact, sustain turnovers of people, as if an organization is going to get bigger and better and be here for a long time. There will be change in the people. And here in Indianapolis, we've had some great examples of that. I look at the IRT, where I had a wonderful opportunity to be part of that board for a decade.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
And
I mentioned that.
they have experienced lots of change and development over the years, very gracefully, very smooth.
Of course, they had Janet Allen and they had Brian, I'm blanking Brian, retired Brian, who was managing director for. There've been some great leadership in all these places.
They have, and they've all been people who have recognized the importance of evolution for the organization.
Speaking of leaders, I'd like to ask you about, because you knew her as I did, and I miss her greatly, and I wish she had seen these last two productions, The Partnership, because she was invested in both. That would be Mary Ann Tobias.
Oh, goodness.
What was your experience with Mary Ann?
Mary Ann was so much fun, to be
She's
honest.
a pistol.
She was. Michael used to joke about the fact that Mary Ann was one of his dates whenever I was busy. But no, Mary Ann was so generous and so enthusiastic and she would be one of the people who would be looking ahead and telling people like Victoria, you can do this.
I love her directness. She did not suffer fools.
Oh, she did not. But you know what? She earned the right.
Yes, she did.
She earned the right to give us some good advice. And I remember she started the shoe fund for the ballet because she understood what was important. But yeah, Mary Ann had a lot of vision for the arts in this community and personally was generous with her time, with her wisdom, her laughter, and then, of course, always there with whatever
Can you
financial
take
challenge.
comfort from the idea that she and Michael would be up there, like, managing things?
I have visions of puppeteers. Yes, a little bit. Yes, great woman.
She loved ballet because I think her granddaughter danced in Chicago with the Joffrey or the second company or whatever. Yeah.
I know it was in Chicago, and I know she was up there every
And she
chance
could turn on the dance floor during a Dance Kaleidoscope fundraiser one year. Did you know that? Oh, so great memories. So tell me about Jackie Nytes. So what makes you tick? Who are your influences in general?
Tom, this weekend I went to my 55th high school class reunion. Okay.
How'd everybody look?
Pretty doggone good. It was a all-girls Catholic high school.
Where was this?
Up in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And we all had to give little speeches. And I actually referenced the fact that I felt all of my opportunities, that I've had a lot of opportunities for leadership in my life, been very blessed. And my comfort in grabbing those opportunities and doing something with them, I trace back to that all-girls Catholic high school.
Those nuns. You had nuns.
We had the sisters, but we also, since it was only us girls, we had to do it.
Right.
Whether it was editor of the yearbook or the literary magazine or class president or whatever it was, the young women had to do it.
You didn't have those boys as a distraction.
Nobody to distract us. Oh, there were two boys' high schools. They were a lot of distraction. But from a leadership standpoint,
Sure.
the psychological notion that, yeah, you can do that. You want that? Go after it.
Yeah.
It was there for you. And there was no stereotype about who should be the leader. We were the leaders. And I credit that experience, those 4 years in that institution, with giving me the notion that, oh, I could lead that. I could do that. That would be doable.
I'm a Catholic boy, so that's why I asked you, what was your order?
Oh, Sisters of St. Joseph.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Were they there, any of them, from your
three
class?
of them.
Gosh, they're still alive.
3 of them. Yeah, I
They're
was
nice.
trying to do the math on that. I decided they must have all been freshman teachers when we had them.
How was it to see your classmates after? Do you go regularly to
No,
these reunions?
I have not ever gone.
Wow. Did you wear your little name tag with the picture?
Yes, and
from
thank
the yearbook?
God, because I wouldn't have known who. There was only one person I really recognized without
Okay.
looking at the name tag.
So tell me about your parents, your family.
My family was in the Fox River Valley in the Green Bay area, mother and father and one brother.
Are you a Packer fan? You
We
better
lived
be.
in the shadow of the stadium. Oh, my God, yes. My parents had regulars who parked in our driveway.
Did you wear a cheese head?
I have several cheese heads. Yes, Tom, if you want to borrow one, you just let me know. I never got to go to games, though, because I was always babysitting for Packer players' kids. Lived in our neighborhood. In those days, the players didn't make much money.
Yeah.
And a lot of them came into town for the season, and then they left.
So how'd you find your way to Indy?
Michael O'Brien.
How did you guys meet?
We met in a great little bar on the University of Wisconsin campus called Snoopy's that has since been replaced by the Cole Auditorium Complex in Madison.
Wow.
And we met in 1970. Took us to 1979 to get around to getting married.
What attracted you to Michael?
He came from a farm family of 13 children. And I'll be honest, I was a little fascinated by that because it was...
How big is yours?
One brother. Opposite track, perhaps.
Yeah.
My biggest accomplishment was learning to say all 13 children's names in chronological order.
I come from a family of 9, and I still forget everybody.
Yeah. But Michael had an adventuresome spirit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what attracted me.
Wow.
And it really played out
Was
in our
he
lives.
Catholic too?
Yes.
Okay,
13
well,
children.
13
yes,
kids.
right.
Yeah, there you-
But he was very adventuresome. And so I went to Germany. He went to India in the Peace Corps.
No, he was in the Peace Corps.
He was in the Peace Corps in
Well,
India.
that tells me a lot about why he was so kind.
Yes, and patient. He
Ah.
taught farmers in India how to increase milk production in their herds.
Which country?
Up in the northern part of India, a place
yeah.
called Punjab.
Were
It's a
they the
beautiful-
poorest of the poor, or is that in the urban city? Or we're
No,
talking-
Punjab is actually the breadbasket of India.
Okay.
Agriculture was very successful there. The Sikh farmers are hardworking folks.
Mm.
And I had the opportunity to go back last fall and visit several of the farmers that Michael had actually consulted with.
Jackie, that's special.
It was quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you guys end up here?
Indiana Farm Bureau Co-op. He had an opportunity for a marketing gig with them, sales marketing.
What year was that?
77, I think he came.
So that's when you came.
Yeah, I came in 81.
Okay.
I was building a library in Wisconsin, and I didn't want to leave until it was finished.
So you went to library school? You have your
Madison.
Yeah. Why the library profession?
I think it goes all the way back to a wonderful group of librarians who put up with all of us every night after school because there was a branch library on the way home, and we hung out there. In 7th grade, it was our third place. We didn't want to be at school. We didn't want to be at home. Where'd we go? We went to the library, and I think it imprinted on me.
After years of making documentaries when I worked in television, the librarians in town were my best friends. They rooted through the stacks for me and showed me. I just will never forget that. How prior to the internet, how you had to go to the library.
So good people who were welcoming and suggested to me that would be a positive environment to be part of.
And then, of course, was it easy to adapt to Indianapolis because it's Midwestern, like where you came from?
It really was, because when I came here, I had been working on a building in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I came to be the director of the Carmel Clay Public Library in 1981. And that was Carmel before it just absolutely exploded.
A sleepy little village.
It was a wonderful community. It was
Yeah,
32,000
I
people in
remember
those days, and everybody still knew everybody. No roundabouts. No kidding, Tom. And at a totally different building than the library up there is in now, but it was a really welcoming town that made me feel good about coming to Indiana.
So as far as your influences, your parents, good teachers, anybody else that you look back
it's funny,
who,
we
who
talked
laid your foundation?
Sure. We talked about some of the teachers this weekend who were instrumental in us. I had a history teacher, Miss Miller, who was a single woman at the time and who traveled a lot. And she would come back every summer, and we would have these amazing slideshows in school about every place she had been and what she had seen. And I'm sure that must have printed on me a little bit, because over the years we loved to travel, and I think that all goes back to Miss Miller. My mother was mostly a stay-at-home mom, although not completely. Her family had been raised in an apartment upstairs over a tavern in a small town. And she grew up coming downstairs over lunch hour to cover for her dad so he could go up and get something to eat. And so the notion of your family business, my father was dedicated as could be, postal worker, 26 years on the job, never missed a day of work kind of guy.
So that's where you got your work ethic. Huh?
I guess so. Yeah, there was no discussion.
Did they live long enough to meet Michael?
Oh, yes, yes. They were both
And
really...
they approved?
They loved him. And Michael was very generous. My mother moved down here. My dad died in 2011. Mom moved down here in 2012 for the Super Bowl. She came to see the Super Bowl and never left. And just died only about a year and a half ago at age 97. 97. A good, ripe life. Yeah.
Where are you now in terms of the aging process? I'm not going to ask your age. I don't know if you're willing to share, but if not, how are you feeling about your advancing years? I think you're a boomer, right? I'm a boomer.
I'm 73.
You're
I need
still
more
young.
exercise than I'm getting, but it's not really holding me back. I'm really staying very active with traveling. I'm still hosting foreign exchange students, which is something Michael and I have done.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
We're still doing that after all these years. And
Didn't you have an Indian student when I was at your home last time around? Was she? I thought maybe.
I have 2 girls from Afghanistan.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yes, and a girl from Vietnam. Wow. It's a big old house for one 73-year-old lady to live in, so I might as well do something exciting with it.
Yeah, so what are some more things that you haven't done that you'd like to do before you move on?
Yeah, we're actually looking at buying a lake house, which is one of those things that I can remember as a child my parents wanted to do and never could. And then somewhere along the line, we wanted to and never did. And my son and I said the other day, you got to stop these cycles of wanting to but.
Yeah.
Whatever that,
go
I
for it.
want to but, you just got to stop that cycle.
I grew up in Fort Wayne in that area and surrounded by lakes.
Yes.
We didn't have a lake cottage. Everyone I knew had them. And so the whole part of the culture was, I'm going to the lake on the weekends.
It's that way in the Green Bay area where I grew up too. And Patrick and my son and I have talked about this notion that if you have something in your life that you've always wanted to
do,
but get rid of that but.
Yeah, it's stopping you.
Whatever
right?
it is, figure out how to make it
So
happen.
what do you think about people our age? I'm 77, and I'm at this point where I'm finally beginning to get it. I would hear older people talk about their experience, and my eyes would roll. Oh, my God, here we go.
Yeah, we're there.
But now I realize that with age comes the wisdom of having lived your life and its joys and sorrows. How do you feel about your wisdom?
Mm-hmm. I try to watch myself so that I don't get too overwhelming about thinking I can dish it out to people.
Yeah, well, like I said,
take the temperature of the crowd before you do that too much. I do feel really blessed. There's a lot of things that I can process now that maybe at one time I wouldn't have been able to.
What's your greatest joy? Or maybe that's a hard question, and maybe you had several, but what would you, if you could single out, what would be your greatest joy?
My greatest joy? That's hard, Tom. I think it's this really big net of people that I've been able to capture because of the opportunities I've had.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it. And gathering them to me whenever I can. We had a Mother's Day crowd that was, I would say, primarily family of choice, since a lot of my family is not here any longer.
Sure.
Your community of choice. Gathering them in.
Okay. Besides Michael not being in your life anymore, what would be your greatest sorrow? Or disappointment? Let's put it that way.
Disappointment.
Or regret.
I don't know if I have a lot of regrets. I used to think I regretted.
Yeah, they are different, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I used to think I regretted not going to law school, but I'm not going to spend any more time on that notion.
Yeah. You would have made a good one.
It might have been cool.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of regrets. If anything, I'm just glad I took whatever risks I did take. And if anything, maybe there might have been a few more. I think, I should have. But generally speaking, I've been able to do some fun stuff, some meaningful stuff, neighborhood work.
Well,
at
I've
the
been
grassroots
following
level.
your career since I've known you, and I would say that you've accomplished quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what do you say to young people who are listening about, who are in it's graduation season, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives? It doesn't always work out that you get to do what you're studying because you can't, it's not available.
Maybe.
What do you say to young people? Let's make believe this is your college, addressed to college students. And
I really think one of the things they've got to realize is how important it is to do what is right in front of you. They're coming out of college with these dreams and these goals, and that's cool. But they've also got something in front of them. You know, maybe it's that very first job. I think that notion of whatever it is that's in front of you that you've got to do right now, do it really well. Don't be so caught up in what's coming after it that you're not giving it your all and you're not getting from it everything you can get from it. Because whatever it is, you've got it right now. And if in the case of someone in a neighborhood or something, if you think you want to be a city councilor, that's great. Right now, are you out there on Saturday with the friends cleaning the alley? Kind of thing. What are you doing to maximize where you are, to meet the people you can, to do everything you can do to contribute to that moment's success? And if you do that, the next things come much more easily. They are much more solid when they come. And I think if you overlook that stuff that's right in front of you that needs you right then and there, you're going to miss something, and you will not have built as sturdy of a foundation for yourself.
living in the moment.
A little bit, and I don't mean it in a foolish, irresponsible way, but I do mean it in the sense of fully taking advantage of the opportunity
And you
you've
said
got.
this before. For me, I think it's important that younger people learn the concept of seizing the moment. Never say no to an opportunity. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. When I think about the first time someone asked us to host a student, if we had said no, how different our life journey would have been. We said yes, and as a result, we have young people all over the world that we're still in touch with.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of wisdom there, Jackie Nytes. And I hope you get that lake house, and I hope that you remember Tom Alvarez sweltering in the heat of Indy.
All right, Tom. We'll book a weekend for you.
Thank you for coming on, and I've really enjoyed getting. I know you fairly well, but I didn't know a lot of this. So thank you so much.
We've been moving in parallel tracks for a long time.
Okay.
Thanks.
See you on the aisle.
Absolutely.
I'm sure somewhere. Okay.
Take care, Tom.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official newsletter for 15 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community. Thank you for joining me on the aisle. Please subscribe to my podcast, and if you want to hear previous episodes, find them on the All Indiana Podcast Network, or listen to them wherever you get your podcasts. This is Tom Alvarez.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.